Good morning and afternoon. I guess we've turned the corner here. Welcome to this year's Advocacy Day for Children Rally. It's just so wonderful to be joined by so many people here today that care so deeply about our young children. First, though, I'd like to say a big hello to all the children joining us here today. Wave your hands so we can see you. We're just really, truly happy to have you here today. My name is Kristen Rosenberger, and I'm the Director of Advocacy and External Engagement at Greater Twin Cities United Way, and I'll be moderating our event today. So first, let's address just a few basic housekeeping items. Please note that this event is being recorded on both Zoom and Facebook Live. Be sure to keep your videos on, but your audio and your sound turned off. I invite you and encourage you to post comments in the chat throughout the event. Feel free to share your thoughts, your ideas, and create conversation on what early childhood means to each of us and the importance and the impact it has on all of us. And then finally, let's create a buzz on social media using the hashtag OurChildrenMN. But before we begin our formal program, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are all on traditional and ancestral and contemporary lands of Indigenous peoples. This land continues to hold great historical and spiritual significance and remains sacred to many people. We acknowledge the complex and multi-layered history that included violence and trauma. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm tribal sovereignty, and we are committed to ongoing efforts to recognize, support, and advocate for sovereign tribal nations and Indigenous peoples of the state of Minnesota and across the entire United States. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the pain that continues to play out in our communities every day, and certainly this week in Minneapolis and Brooklyn Center, stemming from historical racism, ongoing injustice, and inequities. Yet today, we come together to celebrate our gifts and make change for a better future. So let's be change makers and get warmed up with a little icebreaker activity by sharing our favorite books or stories when we were young and the special person that we shared it with. So while our presenters talk about their favorite stories, we encourage each of you to share your favorite stories in the chat. And I think it'll be really fun to see what everyone's books are and give one another great ideas of really special books and stories. So let's start our icebreaker off activity this morning. Lasharian, why don't you please introduce yourself and your favorite story?
Hello, my name is Lasharian McDonald with St. Paul Ramsey County Public Health. I currently live in St. Paul, and my favorite book I would have to say is the Sleep Baby Safe and Snug book created by St. Paul Ramsey County Public Health. And this book is special with me because I share this book with family members and my clients because I'm a home visitor. And it basically talks about the safe ways to put a baby to sleep. And this book was created to lower the infant mortality rate in the African American and American Indian population in St. Paul. So we share this book with friends, and the whole community to have the baby go to sleep safely. So thank you. I love this book. It's straight to the point. It's fun. It's colorful. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Lasharian. And thanks for everybody sharing their books in the chat. I think it's so fun to see so many books that I think we recognize from our childhood and then some that might be new to us. So that's fun. I'd like to now introduce Adar. Adar, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Adar, and I'm a student at the University of Minnesota, currently living in St. Paul. My favorite books growing up were the Harry Potter series, and I enjoyed reading them with my siblings. What made the books so special and memorable for me were the people I shared them with. I love that the book series was something that my siblings and I were able to bond over. We each had our favorite characters and our favorite plot points, but what I loved most about these books is that there was something that we all shared together as a family.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much. And it's so fun to have a college student among us talking about their favorite books. So welcome Adar, who's also a policy intern at Greater Twin Cities United Way. Now I'd like to go ahead and introduce Nancy Jost.
Good afternoon. I'm Nancy Jost. I work for West Central Initiative as the Director of Early Childhood. And we are out of Fergus. And when I was growing up, my mom, who had 8 children and many others always in her household, took time every day after our noon meal, before she did the dishes or anything, she sat us down to read us stories. And growing up in the 1950s and 60s on a farm, we didn't have lots of books, but 2 things we had that came to our house every month were 2 magazines. One of them was called the McCall magazine, and there was a page that had Betsy McCall on it. And it had a little story and then paper dolls. And my mom read that to us. Another magazine that came was the Farm Journal. And it had a page for children with stories in it. So even if you don't have books, lots of books around, there's still the chance to read and tell stories to your children. And I credit my mom for that love of reading, because she cuddled up with us, and it was this warm memory that I had of her. And I always think about that when I'm reading stories. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nancy. And I think it goes to show how where we find our stories is not always traditional, but they're impactful. And last but not least, I want to turn it over to Denise Mayat to share her favorite story.
Good morning. I'm Denise Mayat from the Sheltering Arms Foundation in Minneapolis. And the book that I'm sharing today is called Do You Hoot by a Duluth author named Rich Haig. And the reason I'm sharing it is it's because it's a photographic story of the lives of baby great horned owls. And we have a great horned owl nest in a tree outside of our house. And I have been sharing it with my 4-year-old grandchild in Washington, D.C. I can't read books to him except on Zoom, but this is a wonderful way to share the story of something exciting that's happening in our lives here, and have him be able to follow through with the lives of these baby owls. And I gave him some puppets too, and when he comes onto the Zoom, he's always zooming the baby owl puppet around, and then we keep talking about the progress of the baby owls. So a book can be a great way to share when you're distant and can't be together. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Denise. I really appreciate that. And just want to remind everybody, you're welcome to keep your videos on. I think we can't be together in the rotunda this year all together, but it's fun to see everyone's faces and sort of feel like we're here collectively together. So don't be shy. I want to just thank all of our speakers and all of you that posted your favorite books and stories in the chat. I hope that you will continue to do that as we're talking and moving forward. And I think it goes to show that we just know that books and stories not only develop literacy, but more importantly, they deepen special relationships, they develop our imaginations, and they really expand our experiences. So now I'd like to share a very special video put together by our friends at Way to Grow. Thanks. And now we'd like to pass it over to Stephanie Lewis with Greater Twin Cities United Way to kick off our formal speaker program. And while we're moving to that, I just want to say again, a huge thank you and shout out to Way to Grow. That is the most adorable video, and I think it brings a smile to all of our faces. So thank you to that, and we'll move on to Stephanie.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Lewis, Associate Vice President of Community Impact with Greater Twin Cities United Way. Before offering remarks, it is important to acknowledge the heaviness that many in our community and even some at this event are wrestling with in response to the murder of Dante Wright. Please know that I share your profound grief and hold you in my heart. Welcome to Advocacy for Children Day. Each year, Advocacy for Children Day brings together parents, early care providers, advocates, and legislators at the Capitol to amplify the needs of our state's most precious resource, our children. As you can see, this year is a bit different. Today, we are in our homes instead of the state Capitol Rotunda, yet we are still united in our purpose to make sure legislators invest in our state's youngest children. Many thanks to Greater Twin Cities United Way, event co-sponsor Start Early Funders Coalition, and to our many partners who have helped plan and support this event. One of the most significant investments an adult has made in my academic journey was the school librarian handing me a copy of Mafaro's Beautiful Daughters for class reading time. That simple act accomplished two yet important things. One, it intensified my love for reading, and two, introduced me to an African princess, something I had not seen before. It is important that children have similar experiences as often and as early as possible, and that's why we're here. With 90% of a child's brain development occurring by the age of 5, parents need access to affordable, high-quality, culturally relevant early care and learning for their children to thrive. But it's not only access to early care and learning that determines success. Home visits at the prenatal and pediatric stages support healthy children and families by giving parents the tools they need and connecting them to critical social and community services. Taken together, these early interventions encourage successful child development while ensuring positive economic outcomes for parents. In addition, increasing the Child Care Assistant Program benefit ensures early care providers keep their doors open and maintain a stable workforce. Without investment, educational disparities in our state will continue to grow. The need for change is now. Greater Twin Cities United Way is proud to join our partners in advocating for closing opportunity gaps in early care and learning, as well as developing solutions that position our children for future success. Parents, our most important partners, have been the secret sauce, lending their voices and expertise to inform and power the work. You will hear from a few today. We're here to let legislators know that Minnesota families deserve affordable, high-quality early care and learning services. And with that, I will hand it over to our governor and lieutenant governor to share their thoughts. Thank you.
I'm Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and I've been an advocate for children and families my entire career. As a former teacher and lifelong child advocate, Governor Walz and I are committed to putting children at the center of government. What that means is that we recognize when we invest in the littlest Minnesotans, we are investing in better systems and opportunities for all Minnesotans. This commitment is embodied in the mission of our Children's Cabinet, which works across agencies with external partners to actualize our mission. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, the Children's Cabinet has leveraged its interagency leadership coordination structures to ensure children and families are prioritized in our response through many initiatives, including developing public-private partnerships to address technology barriers, childcare supply needs, and mental health access. Supporting, communicating, and engaging with childcare providers so that they can remain safely open, and investing state and federal resources in childcare assistance to families. Supporting the implementation of pandemic EBT and other food support programs to ensure families have access to food despite lost wages and missed meals during school closures. And coordinating efforts to address mental health and well-being needs among students through interventions like increased access to telemedicine and funding through programs like school-linked mental health and day treatment services. At its core, the Children's Cabinet helps us to take a data-driven and results-oriented approach to streamlining programs, aligning strategies, and promoting action and accountability of Minnesota's efforts to ensure that each and every Minnesota child, no matter their race or zip code, is prepared to be a leader of tomorrow. A part of this work is recognizing Minnesota's changing demographics. We are getting increasingly diverse, and that change is most apparent among our young children. 32% of children under the age of 5 in Minnesota are Black, Indigenous, or children of color. That's 1 in 3. If your mission is to serve children, but you are not using a lens of racial equity in your work, you are not serving the children who exist today. What that means is that we need to listen to families and communities on what they need to be successful and believe them when they tell us the solutions. We need to provide culturally specific resources that meet people where they're at. We should imagine ourselves as the family who's accessing these resources and ask, what can we do to make this process easier? And we should work towards making sure organizations doing the work look like the families they serve. That is how we begin to undo the disparities and historic trauma that are embedded in the systems that we all live and work in every single day. We are prepared for this work, and we are prepared to do this work with our partners in the legislature to make these policy goals a reality for Minnesota children and families. Thank you so much for your continued focus on our littlest Minnesotans. Your advocacy means everything. We look forward to working together to make Minnesota the best place in the nation for all of our children. Chimigwech.
Hello everyone, Governor Tim Walz here. I'm happy to welcome you all to the annual Advocacy for Children Day. I understand we're sharing our favorite childhood book today. Mine was Frog and Toad Are Friends. I loved that book when I was little. And from reading Brown Bear, What Do You See to my own children, to helping children learn and grow as an educator, I know how critical the early years are to a child's healthy development and future success. Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan and I have always been committed to investing in our littlest Minnesotans, but the pandemic has only heightened this need to invest and support those younger years. The past year has also been extraordinarily challenging for our families and for our early childhood educators and childcare providers, the workforce behind our workforce. We're incredibly grateful to the childcare workers and educators for the sacrifices they made to support our emergency responders and our recovery. Most importantly, to support our children by making sure they have a place of safety, well-being, and growth during this challenging time. My administration prioritized federal education and childcare stimulus resources that the state has already received to increase access to child care assistance and early learning scholarship program. And we're eager for the incredible opportunity for us to support our child care and education system with the investments in the American Rescue Plan. And in our state budget proposal, I focused on increasing access to child care and early education, providing funds for summer learning to help students catch up on learning, and building on community-driven initiatives to eliminate disparities in pregnancy and birth outcomes for Black and Indigenous mothers and babies. We're committed to working with our partners in the legislature to turn these policies into a reality for our children and their families. Thank you for your commitment to advocating for our youngest Minnesotans.
Well, I want to have a big thank you to Lieutenant Governor Flanagan and Governor Walz for joining us here today. We know that this issue is really important to them. We've appreciated their leadership, and really we couldn't move forward on the policy and advocacy work that we do and the additional funding without their support and leadership. So thank you to both of them. I just want to acknowledge, I appreciate everyone in the chat. I saw earlier, Holly gave a shout out to librarians. Her mother is a retired librarian, so I think that's great, connected with books. Often they hand us the books and we forget about all the people behind that. And then Jamie had a post a little bit earlier about a suggested story called Our Skin, a first conversation about race, that she recommended could be really helpful to work with children to address some of the issues, unfortunately, that our communities are grappling with. So with that, why don't we move on in the program? I'm very excited to introduce Javon Williams, a local parent here in Minneapolis and also an early childhood educator. Welcome, Javon.
Good afternoon. I've been blessed enough to have worked in early childhood education for over 20 years. I have had the honor of being many children's first or only African American teacher. While working in the classroom, I spent a lot of time building trust and a great relationship with families and students in my class. This made it easier to do home visits. Seeing my students in their home environment helped me so much as a teacher. I enjoyed seeing my students excited to show me their favorite things in all their family photos. It also helped me understand why some of my students were showing up to school the way they were. As a parent myself, I understood how uncomfortable it was to allow a teacher in their home. So it was important for me to have a close relationship with my families and maintain an open mind about everyone's living space. My two children and I moved here from Iowa in 2005. Once settled into our new lives, it was time to sign my oldest up for preschool. To my surprise, I couldn't afford the cost of preschool, childcare for my youngest, rent, and other bills. I was told to apply for childcare assistance. So I did, and then was told because I didn't receive money from the county, I needed to go on a waiting list that was 3 years long. A year later, I got a new job at the Midtown YWCA in Minneapolis. I was able to enroll both of my children in their early childhood program. It was good because every time we rode past, my children would beg to go to their pool because you can see their slides through the window. The YWCA had a sliding fee scale that made it affordable for me, and the center director worked with me so that I could keep my children in their center. My youngest was able to attend preschool for 2 full years before kindergarten. She learned things that my oldest struggled with in his first few years of school. Preschool set my child up for success. She learned pre-literacy skills so that she was ready to read by the time she got to kindergarten. She knew how to follow directions, make friends, and be a friend. She also learned how to express her feelings and so much more. By her going to preschool, it was an easy transition to kindergarten. My oldest struggled with reading, expressing his feelings, and speech. Even though I taught in early childhood education, there was a lot that I couldn't help my oldest with. Trying to make sure that my family had a place to live, food on the table every night, making sure his homework was done while navigating a new environment with not much help. That didn't leave room for anything else. I found myself frustrated and wondering if the move to Minnesota was the right move for my family a year later. We were able to receive outside help for my oldest with his reading, and he began getting speech services through the YWCA. I believe that if my oldest was able to attend preschool, he would have had the tools he needed for kindergarten. Through my children and the children I interact with on a daily basis lets me know how important early childhood education is for those going into kindergarten. Kids who attend preschool are sent to kindergarten with the tools they need to be successful in school. Those kids, most times, are months ahead of those who haven't been through an early childhood program. I mean, who doesn't want to send their kid to school to, successfully and all the tools that they need? And you're also setting them up for success in the future. I can't speak for everyone, but as a parent, that is one of the greatest gifts I can give my children. Thank you for your time.
Javon, thank you so much. That's a really powerful story, and I think one that many of us can see ourselves in or others in the work we do in our community. And so I think it's so important. And I really appreciate how you started out talking about relationships and how important those are for the youngest children and home visiting. It's not just about the classroom, but we need to start with building those trust, that relationship, and then move into the classrooms. So thank you so much. With that, in the chat, I appreciate everybody. Keep it up. One thing I thought would be great is just to share, why is early childhood so important to you and your family? I think Javon shared a wonderful, moving, powerful story that is all too often common, and would love to hear what your stories are. And then next, I wanted to shift gears a little bit, and I'm very excited to welcome Senator Carla Nelson. She's been a longtime early childhood advocate from Rochester in the Senate, and provided great leadership to move forward policy and funding. And with that, I'd like to introduce and welcome Senator Nelson.
Oh, thank you so much. It is a joy to be with you today. I'm in my office in the Capitol. We're in session today, so I might have to run down and offer an amendment or take a vote. But what I want to, first of all, is just really thank you all. Child Care Aware, New Horizons Academy, Children's Defense Fund, Initiative Foundation, the Tasca Project, Greater Twin Cities United Way, Think Small, Sheltering Arms, Head Start, Way to Grow, Blue Cross Blue Shield, West Central Initiative, Coalition for Targeted Home Visiting, and then MNSACA, MCEA, MNAEYC, MCCA, ACCAP, MNAFEE, P3 Coalitions, and Joyce. And I took the moment to read all of those supporters of today's Advocacy Day at the Hill, because it's so important. We're talking about the next generation, and it is much bigger, broader than just what one entity can do. And so I just want to salute you and thank you all for your advocacy. Our next generation depends upon it, and that is our future, folks. I know you know that. Just a couple of the things moving in the legislature. First of all, I'm very thrilled that the federal government has sent over $500 million to our state in Minnesota to use for early learning and childcare. I've worked with a bipartisan group of senators to put together a proposal on how best we can use those one-time monies for long-time lasting impact. And that is with our youngest learners. So a couple of the things that I've supported in the past that also need investments again and going forward for this one-time money are things like child care assistance program. We need to make sure that we don't have that waiting list, and that the funds are there to allow to eliminate that waiting list and make sure that the reimbursement rate is such that we maximize the federal match, and more importantly, we can make sure our kids get great child care. In addition, I've been the earliest of leaders and champions on the high quality early learning scholarships. I suspect everyone on this call is well familiar with those. They are so effective that they have also been, I'm just looking at my floor session there, that these high quality early learning scholarships has been noted as the Minnesota model, and other states are doing this as well. And we can and we must continue to take the lead on this. The bipartisan early learning group that has been working on this particular proposal has put enough money. I'm glad to say we passed it out of the Senate Human Services Reform Committee, $146 million of increased funding for those high quality early learning scholarships. And that should reach all of our children ages 3 through kindergarten, pre-kindergarten age, and also, of course, those special at-needs kids, special risk kids as well. So that can be incredibly, incredibly helpful. And we know that the gaps in learning, these start way before kids get to kindergarten. And if we're serious, and we should be, about eliminating our often nation-leading achievement gap, and if we're serious, and we should be, about a more equitable state and future for all of our kids, we need to make sure that our kids are ready for kindergarten. They need to be kindergarten ready when they get there. And these are a few of the massive initiatives that can truly help close the achievement gaps and also help fund the child care deserts, for example. The proposal we're working on also has direct payments to providers to help them through this pandemic. And because we know that quality of that care is so important, there are bonuses in those direct payments for those providers that are somehow on the path to quality. So these are just a few of the things that are moving through the Senate right now, the legislature, and we need your advocacy. Obviously, there are great needs, and always there's a lot of prioritization that needs to be done. And with your help, I am very hopeful that we will prioritize our earliest learners. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. We appreciate your taking a couple minutes from the floor session that we know is busy and ongoing right now. So, and again, thank you so much. We appreciate your leadership and sharing some of the positive potential that we can support going forward with our advocacy yet this session. So I think we've got lots to get busy on and work together on, and it looks very optimistic for young children. So I hope we get.
I'm going to have to run and present this amendment. I will tell people how to get hold of me, sen.carla.nelson@senate.mn. Thank you so much for your advocacy. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And now we're going to move on to Karen DeVos. She lives way up in the northwest corner of her state and is the owner, director, and a teacher of the Little Learners Child Care Center up in Ada. So we are delighted to have Karen with us today, and I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me at the Advocacy for Children's Day rally. It is an honor to be invited to speak at such an important event. My name is Karen DeVos. I am an early childhood educator with 23 years of field experience, working in both family childcare and now as a childcare center owner and preschool teacher. After 23 years of early ed experience, I've come across many books that are in my favorites pile, from Pete the Cat to the Babysitter's Club. Each book holds a memory for me that I cherish. But my favorite book is Love You Forever by Robert Munsch. It's a book that I read to my children frequently when they were little, and it's one that's always been a favorite in our childcare settings. And my husband actually just gave me a signed copy, so he scored mega points, and it's a gift that I will treasure forever. As an early childhood educator and small business owner, I would be remiss if I didn't touch today on how thankful I am that the American Rescue Plan targeted $50 billion to early care and education, as well as express my gratitude to our state legislators who ensured that my business and so many like me could continue to operate during COVID because of the generous and desperately needed help that we received. With that being said, I also feel like I need to address some concerns that I have as an educator, as a small business owner, and as a mother. The people in this virtual room know that the work of early educators is vital to our communities. Early educators do hard, really important work every single day. Every conversation with a child, every book that is read, every care that we give has a direct impact on the development of our youngest learners, thus having an impact on the communities we serve and our beautiful state. So I find myself reflecting on why, after 23 years building my business and reputation and working in a field that I love, after teaching my own children how to work with and work in this important field, why I am not encouraging them to see themselves in early childhood education as a long-term goal. And unfortunately, the answer is simple. This work, while immensely rewarding, also brings with it a great deal of financial stress. I don't want my children to work in a field that is undervalued and underpaid, and I don't want my kids to worry that they may not be able to pay back their student loans or make their monthly mortgage payment. Right now, that is the reality of working in the early care and education field. This past year, while it was incredibly difficult, has been an important one for early care educators. The investments made at both the state and federal level show that the educator's work is so important. We found during that very difficult COVID time, especially last spring and into the summer, my child care center team showed me bravery, compassion, and resilience. We did not close. And part of that was due to the fact that my own children stood by my side to ensure that we could care for the children of the essential workers who live or who work in this space to provide care for the people who live here. We also provided a space for these children of these workers to make sure that they had a familiar and safe place to be. And my own children came to help me every single day while completing their homework and their graduation requirements virtually. And it really showed me what amazing educators they could be one day. As I get ready to open up my second site and soon own the only 2 child care center settings in my county, I can't help but wonder what will happen when I decide to retire. Will my children want this legacy that we have created together as a family? Will we have to close these centers and leave many families without care because the burden is too big? My children are currently 19, 17, and 13. One is getting ready to take her LSATs. One is getting ready to put in his applications for colleges with the intention of becoming a middle or high school teacher. The third is gearing up for braces and MCA testing. And all 3 of them have the potential to be tremendous early childhood teachers and follow in my footsteps. I am building a business that I should want to share with my children. My hope is that one day I'll be able to look at this business that we have created and the good work that we do every day, and that I'll want to share it with them. This will only happen though if we take a serious look at how we're taking care of those who are taking care of our smallest learners. And if we do everything we can to ensure that those working in the early childhood field are properly valued and compensated. I sincerely hope that what we have seen over this last year with investments to the ECE field is just the start. Children in Minnesota, our smallest learners, my children deserve to have the best opportunities available to them. And we can only do that by continuing to recognize and support those working in this very important field. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Karen. I appreciate it. And I think you really did a nice job of representing the joys of being in early childhood and working with young children, and the reality and the challenges and the stark challenges that early childhood workforce and businesses that provide these important educational and developmental experiences for children are really facing and grappling with. So it's very important that we're also looking at supplying and supporting the workforce sector for early childhood this session as well. So next I'll move, we're getting near to the end, and I thank you all for joining us today. I'll introduce Representative Moran, and then we'll move to Dr. Mai-Kao Hung with the University of St. Thomas. So I would like to introduce Representative Rena Moran, who probably needs no introduction. She's certainly the chair in the House Ways and Means Committee, has been a longtime champion of early childhood and just an absolutely fantastic partner with us over the years. I'd like to welcome Representative Moran.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Rena Moran. I represent St. Paul in District 65A. Been in the legislature my 6th term. Was formerly the chair of Health and Human Service, currently the chair of Ways and Means, and I would consider myself like a huge advocate for early learning. My degree is in early childhood education. I taught in that field for 15 years in public, private, sectors while raising my 7 kids myself. What specifically would you like for me to do other than that introduction?
Yeah, Representative Moran, it would be just wonderful if you share just a little bit about your perspective, some of the work moving forward in partnership on access, the importance of access to high quality early childhood, supporting the workforce sector, any thoughts that you have on the importance of all of us coming together to advocate, and the importance of constituents, that maybe haven't done it before or not comfortable reaching out to their legislators, how you might talk about that and encourage folks to get involved and get active.
We definitely need every child advocate to get involved in what we're doing legislatively. I remember when I first became a member of the Minnesota House of Representatives in 2010, where we were not doing any investment in early learning at all. And the premise at that time was that, as you know, parents needed to stay home with their kids. We didn't do that. And here we are now investing in scholarships and, you know, quality care and looking at brain development. um, we have just really did some highly investment in early learning. We know if we want kids to enter kindergarten ready and prepared, the first 5 years of life is paramount, that they are in a quality daycare center, and that parents have the choice and the option to also go to work if they need to, right? And so for me, one of the most important issues that I am working on and advocating strongly for is the increase in CCAP, the reimbursement rates. We are currently at 25% of the percentile. Federally, we should be at the 75% percentile. My hope is that we can at least get up to 50%. And I'm hoping that that would really help this industry. Um, so that is a key component for me. I was really happy to see us move legislation around, and you guys can let me know how you feel about this, but no suspension for pre-K kids. We know social emotional skills happens. You know, kids are learning how to take turns. They're learning how to sit still. They're learning, right, all of these developmental pieces. And so to expel kids for behavior like that is, to me, is just is something that we don't do, because as teachers, it is our obligation, responsibility to help kids form those skills, right? So that they can, you know, be productive citizens. And that doesn't happen if we just want to dismiss them. And we're teaching them that they are of value in such an early age. And so I will continue to be a strong advocate for the scholarships, for investment from the state, for our earliest learners, and continue to support our current chair of the Early Childhood Education Committee, Representative Dave Pinto, who is a awesome, awesome fighter. You guys don't have no one better, I think, at this point, who can be representing our 0 to 5 students or learners or babies. No one stronger to do that besides me. I'm kidding. Just besides, he's doing a great job. Um, and I just continue to and look forward to working beside him. I think somewhere in there you wanted to know one of some of my favorite books. Since I'm old school, I like the old books too. I like the Dr. Seuss books. So I have an array of like Green Eggs and Ham, you know, which is one of my favorites. I have, look, still the Hop on Pop, along with Dr. Seuss, the One Fish, Two Fish, Three Fish, and oh, the places you'll go. Uh, those are some of my books, along with what you see behind me that I have shared. Grace Goes to Washington, Grace Becomes President. You know, those are some of the books that I continue to read to my 3-year-olds and my 2-year-olds. Um, also, my grandson, who's in the second grade now, who's reading that to his 3-year-old sister. So those are just some of the books that I care about. We know literacy is really important in those very early years, and we know the importance. And I know you know the importance of having um, spaces and places where kids can begin to, you know, identify letters, you know, putting letters together to form sentences and begin to read. All those things are important. And we have to do it. You know, our kids are counting on us to create those opportunities for all of them, especially our low income kids, our kids of color. You know, what we have those disparities after they're entering kindergarten, ready and prepared. Reading, we used to say reading by 3rd grade, but the fact is, you know, hey, they have to be ready. They have to be ready way before 3rd grade to read in this 21st century. And so creating those spaces for that to happen is really, really important. And that's the work that you do. That's the work that we do, that we are now leading on in the legislature, definitely in the Minnesota House. And I want to say a key partner with you. Best of work.
Thank you so much, Representative Moran. I think we can all feel that your passion for this issue. You talked about some really important, issues that we need to address. I think the early childhood suspensions are something that is really alarming, and you're right. We're definitely talking about development here, and creating those social skills. So that's something that's definitely truly important. And also appreciate and want to echo a shout out to Representative Dave Pinto. He's been an amazing leader and champion in early childhood, and I know you've worked closely with him on these issues. So thank you to both of you. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Mai-Kao Hung, who is the Vice President and Dean with the University of St. Thomas. She also sits on the Itasca Project's First 1,000 Days Task Force. And they just came out with a really important report that I know she'll be sharing with you in a moment. So I'd like to welcome and introduce Dr. Mai-Kao Hung. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. So I thought I would talk about how each one of us has a really different story and more than one story. We all bring multiple perspectives and really diverse experiences to our roles as professionals, partners, parents, community members, and leaders. We also know that our earliest experiences, especially within the first 1,000 days, helps inform and also create the architecture for our brains moving forward, and that early experience really shapes our stories and activates our human potential over time. So that's a very rapid period of development. So I thought I would share my personal story, which is, the first 1,000 days of my life in the country of Laos as a Hmong refugee kid was actually swept up by war, trauma, and displacement. I spent a year living in a refugee camp as a 3-year-old from the time I was 3 to 4. Really experiencing things that probably no child should ever have to experience in their lifetime. But because I had my parents who came from a very oral culture, storytelling culture, I didn't miss out on the stories. I didn't miss out on those opportunities despite living in poverty until the 10th grade. I would meet my first child advocate at Brown University, where I became a student in psychology. And I remember what he said about human beings and children and advocacy. He said, there are 2 sources of power, people or money. And if you have those lined up, you're gonna be okay. Just keep at it. I was taking a child development class. Now that I'm older and I've graduated from Brown and graduated from the Humphrey School of Public Affairs, been the president of the Wilder Foundation, worked in county government, advocating on behalf of children and families my entire career, and now being dean of the Morrison Family College of Health, where I get to pay it forward to the next generation. What I can also say is that the third dimension of that power is just knowledge. It's just knowledge, and knowledge that can be distributed in many different ways, though the science keeps improving. So I'm here to say that, young children don't have any agency. They don't have any choices of where they're born, who they're born to, how they look like, whether they're seen as potentially valuable human beings or not. I know I was certainly not seen that way as a refugee kid. Children are wholly reliant on us as adults, those that surround them to create the conditions where they can survive and then thrive. And we know what they need. We all know, particularly prenatal to 5, adequate health and nutrition, exposure to language and stories, a stable and safe environment, nurturing interactions, bonding with adults, and their little brains are just soaking everything up, everything that we don't even see as adults. So to ensure that all children have these early experiences, we need to care about every child, as if they are our own. I have 4 children myself, but I feel like I continue to fail the many children who are out there who need the kind of love and support and the conditions to succeed that I, despite poverty, was able to access because of many good people like you along the way. Families in the broader community, equipped with the right information, motivation, support, can really erase all of these inequities that we see in society, and regardless of background, because I'm a champion of humanity. So I know that, we form fancy things in higher ed, a lot of research, a lot of ways of looking at things. We know so much more now about the first 1,000 days than we did before. Given how the brain develops in the first 1,000 days, we have to have targeted strategies so that we can have all children be able to access what we know they need to do well. Children who do well become adults who do well. For the past 18 months, I've been working with the Itasca Project, which is a cross-sector alliance of Minneapolis and St. Paul area employers on a first 1,000 days initiative to raise awareness about the critical lifelong impact of the first 1,000 days. Employers, you're the ones that work with adults, but you have a lot to say and do for children and families that can shape optimal development for our littlest people who will become your future employees and who will bring eventually not just economic value, but human value to our society. I know because I've been the chair of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve Bank in the past, and I've read a lot of studies, and we have a lot of things to be grateful for in Minnesota, but we're not there yet. So last month, Itasca released a report called The First 1,000 Days, Invest When It Matters Most. I'd encourage all of you to read it because it basically identifies 4 major factors with optimal development and offers up opportunities for us to intervene in 4 areas: health and wellness, knowledge and skills, communities support, community resources and support, and ensuring that we address the social and economic risk factors that so many children live in day to day. Employers might not be top of mind for all of you, but just keep in mind that 75% of babies born in Minnesota are to mothers who work outside of the home. And it's not like moms are the only ones who actually take care of kids, but there are a lot of kids right now and families whose lives have been upended by the pandemic, by racism, by all the things that we see. So I want us as advocates to think about our future prosperity with deliberate intent, and to ensure that our next generation of children, I call this holding hands across the generations, the 34,000 children who are born in our region each year, especially the 10,000 who face significant challenges due to poverty or other conditions, that we will wipe this away. Because the real change that children need is all of us, everybody to care in all of our respective roles, whether you have children or not. Only together can we actually make this happen. And I know that we can do it, Minnesota. We are human beings who care, and we want that care to translate into policy and work that actually benefits children and families and our future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I think bringing this back to our humanity, and regardless if we're in Northwestern Minnesota, we're in the metro area, or we're across the world, that children need the same things for their healthy development. We know what these things are, and we need to roll up our sleeves and work together to make it happen. So thank you so much. I see in the chat that there was a link put into by Kristen Spargo. So thanks, Kristen, to that Itasca project report. I suggest everyone take a look at that. It's really powerful, and this work is continuing to move forward right now. So thank you for joining us. Next, and definitely not least, I'd like to introduce Eugenia Hernandez. She's a parent at Joyce Preschool and wanted to share her story with us now.
Hola, mi nombre es Eugenia Hernández. Tengo una hija que se llama Estrella Chávez. Asiste a la escuela Joyce y la 34 y la Par. Yo estoy muy contenta por estos 2 años que mi hija ha asistido a la escuela. Gracias a ustedes por las becas que nosotros hemos podido recibir o que han podido ustedes donar para la educación temprana de nuestros hijos. Estoy muy agradecida de verdad con ustedes por esa ayuda que nos han dado. También soy padre de comité durante 2 años. Me gusta ayudar a Joyce. Me gusta involucrarme en cosas de la escuela, en cosas actividades. Entonces, por eso les doy las gracias a ustedes por las becas que nos están dando. La verdad, Nosotros somos familias de bajos recursos que lamentablemente a veces no pudiésemos haber pagado una colegiatura mensual más cara. Gracias a las becas que nos han dado, nosotros hemos podido mandar a nuestra hija a la escuela Joyce de la educación temprana. Ella ha aprendido muchísimo durante estos 2 años, tanto físico, emocional. Le doy las gracias también a las maestras que han puesto mucho de su parte, su gran desempeño en la escuela, la confianza que le dan a los niños. Gracias a ustedes, maestra, yo puedo decir que mi hija en estos momentos, ella ya está lista y preparada para irse a la escuela del kindergarten. Gracias a ustedes, gracias a las becas que nos han dado. Me gustaría que siguieran apoyando a más familias. Me gustaría que siguieran donando más para esas becas para las familias de bajos recursos como nosotros. Que gracias a esas becas nosotros hemos podido mandar a nuestros hijos a la escuela. Por favor, legisladores, apóyenos. Tenemos hijos pequeños que ellos sí quieren ir a la escuela. Que hay padres que quieren mandar a sus hijos a la escuela, pero lamentablemente a veces no pueden mandarlos. ¿Por qué? Porque se paga muy caro mensualmente. Con la beca que ustedes nos podrían ayudar sería un gran beneficio, sería una gran ayuda para nosotros. Gracias de corazón. Muchísimas gracias. Sigamos apoyando. Gracias a la escuela Joyce, estoy muy contenta, muy agradecida durante estos 2 años que mi hija fue a la escuela. Ha aprendido muchísimo. Aprendió sus 2 idiomas, español e inglés. Gracias, Joyce. Gracias a las becas. Gracias, legisladores, por esa ayuda.
Thank you, Eugenia. I appreciate your joining us and providing those words and really, most importantly, the call to action for legislators. It's so important that they understand that at the end of session, that it's not okay to barter these things away, but early childhood has to be strongly supported, strongly funded, so that we can actually move against so many of these necessary issues. So with that, I'd like to turn it over and close us out with Allison Corrado, who will all give us some things to do and actions we can take of how do we make this happen? How do we put it into motion? Thanks, Allison.
Thanks, Kristen. This has been so powerful. My name is Allison Corrado. I'm a senior program officer with the Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota Foundation, and I'm the co-chair of the Public Policy Committee of the Start Early Funders Coalition. For over 20 years, we've celebrated young children, parents, educators, and advocates on this annual Advocacy for Children Day rally, and we are so happy that you joined us for our first virtual rally. My favorite book when I was a young child was The Rainbow Fish, because not only was it very glittery, so obviously great, by the end of the book, the rainbow fish learned that real happiness in life comes from being in relationship with one another. And I love reading that book with my 4-year-old daughter now. This legislative session is unlike any one that we have seen before. The voices of parents and providers and advocates throughout the pandemic have created this urgent call to action for our state and federal government. I want to thank our parents and our educators and our elected officials that joined us today. We are positioned to take significant steps forward to creating a more equitable future for our young children. But we have to listen. We have to really hear the urgent calls for racial justice, for real change and action, and we can't wait any longer. It is so important that families have access to the programs and the services they need, and that we help our early educators with grants and investments and support. So I want to leave you with, as Kristen said, some to-do items with a call to action. Right now, more than ever, we need to ask ourselves, what is the future that we want to create for our children? What policies and actions do we need to create the resilient and courageous community that we want our children to grow up in? Your representatives need to hear your stories. There's an action alert that was shared in the chat and we'll share again to sign on to. We hope that you have fun with the Dream Big Art project and share your children's dreams for their future with their legislators. You can find all the information about the art project and how to contact your representatives on the event page. Share my daughter's, her dream for her future is a world where everyone is loved and a world where we all have clean water. And lastly, use our hashtag. It's hashtag #OurChildrenMN to lift up our stories and make sure that our voices are heard. With that, I'll just thank you again for coming, and I hope that everybody takes care. Bye-bye.